It perfectly optimizes your entire global supply chain. But then, a few months later, you find out it is actively alienating your most loyal customers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and worse, your own employees are absolutely terrified to use it. Welcome to the invisible cost of the AI gold rush.
It is a harsh reality. And I mean, you, like almost everyone else navigating the business world right now, are probably feeling that pressure.
Oh, for sure, that constant low-level hum of pressure to adopt AI at warp speed.
Exactly. The mandate is always about chasing infinite scalability or, relentless efficiency and that elusive competitive advantage.
But it raises a critical question for you to consider. What happens when you build a hyper-efficient, incredibly powerful machine, but you completely forget to install the steering wheel?
Well, you are left with a vehicle hurtling forward with massive momentum, and it's driven by algorithms you do not fully understand, heading toward a collision that is, frankly, practically a mathematical certainty at that point.
And that impending collision, that is the exact tension we are exploring today in this deep dive. We are pulling our insights from a really brilliant piece published in April 2026.
Yes, the article by J.D. Parashar.
Exactly. He is the founder and director of Rethink AI Innovation and Research. And what's interesting is he published this directly to his network on LinkedIn.
Which is great because it provides this incredible, unfiltered window into how the professional community is reacting in real time.
Oh, the comment section alone is a goldmine.
It really is. It's a fascinating case study in both anxiety and ambition. You have executives trying to sound super confident about their own deployments.
Yeah, and then right below them, you have practitioners throwing out these wild concepts. Like one user literally pitched implementing I think they called it a JEDI night protocol.
Yes, the JEDI protocol, to manage what they were calling an AI awakening.
I saw that. And for anyone wondering, they were using JEDI as an acronym. It stood for Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion.
Right, essentially arguing for a rigid algorithmic code of conduct to prevent encoded bias.
Which, I mean, it sounds a bit like science fiction.
A little bit, yeah.
But it highlights how viscerally people are debating this online. Everyone is worried. But Parashar's piece cuts right through that noise with a very grounded reality check.
It definitely does.
So the mission for our deep dive today is to understand a specific argument he makes, which is that treating AI ethics as a mere compliance checkbox.
We're just an afterthought.
Right, something you just tack on after the software is running. That isn't just a moral failure. It is a massive, highly measurable business cost. Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, Parashar's core thesis fundamentally challenges the standard Silicon Valley playbook.
The move fast and break things mentality.
Exactly. Most organizations today operate under a capability first, responsibility later paradigm.
Yeah.
The prevailing attitude is to deploy the system, capture those immediate efficiency gains, and just wait to see if an ethical issue actually materializes.
Like waiting for a biased decision or a massive data hallucination to happen before spending any money to fix it.
Precisely. Ethical considerations are completely relegated. They become a delayed, fragmented, and entirely reactive process.
Which honestly brings up a glaring question. Smart people run these companies, right?
Usually, yes.
So if the consequences are as catastrophic as Parashar claims, why is this deploy first, ask questions later mentality such a universal trap?
What's fascinating here is Parashar's observation on the psychology of that early deployment phase. The trap exists because early AI deployments almost always look like massive, unqualified successes.
Oh, I see.
The initial metrics give leadership this incredible dopamine hit of productivity.
Because suddenly the system is answering like 50,000 customer queries an hour.
Yes. Or generating thousands of lines of functional code in seconds. And so the quarterly reports look fantastic.
Everyone gets a bonus.
Exactly. But the problem is that issues with AI ethics, whether that's systemic bias, degraded decision quality, or just a lack of transparent logic, they rarely announce themselves on day one.
They sneak up on you.
They emerge gradually, almost imperceptibly at first. Furthermore, the responsibility for these systems is often completely siloed across the company.
Right, so nobody has the full picture.
Precisely. The data scientists who built or tuned the model are in one building. The IT department deploying it is in another.
And the marketing team utilizing it is probably just looking at conversion rates.
Yeah, and the legal department. They are completely ignoring it until a lawsuit actually lands on their desk.
Wow.
Because the degradation is so gradual and ownership is such a fractured mess, leadership gets lulled into a completely false sense of security.
Man, it sounds exactly like building a rocket ship and deciding You'll only figure out the navigation system after it's already in orbit.
That is a terrifying but very accurate way to put it.
But I do want to push back on this premise slightly, just thinking about how tech leaders might respond to Parashar.
Sure, go ahead.
The entire modern technology sector is built on shipping a minimum viable product, right? You launch, you find the bugs, you patch them, you update.
The classic iterative process.
Yeah. So why can't a company just treat an ethical issue, like, say, a biased recommendation algorithm, as just another bug to be patched in version 2.0?
Well, that is the standard defense you hear in boardrooms all the time, but it fundamentally misunderstands the mechanism of artificial intelligence.
How so?
You cannot just patch an ethical flaw in a machine learning model the way you fix a broken checkout link on a website. And the reason why, the core reason, is scale.
Because AI doesn't just make one mistake.
Exactly. AI operates at massive scale. This moves us directly into the first two hidden costs Parashar identifies.
Okay, what are they?
The rapid erosion of customer trust and reputational damage at scale. These models are now the primary engines heavily influencing things like dynamic pricing, product recommendations, and frontline customer service.
They are processing millions of interactions simultaneously. Here's where it gets really interesting. Parashar draws this brilliant, sharp line between traditional human error and algorithmic error.
Yes, the difference in the blast radius.
Exactly. If a human customer service representative gives someone an unfair price based on, say, a biased assumption, that is a contained, localized failure.
It is a terrible experience for that one customer, absolutely.
Right. But a manager can step in, apologize, issue a refund, and retrain that specific employee. The blast radius is tiny, but an AI failure, that is an organizational multiplier.
Because if your training data contains historical biases, perhaps your company historically approved fewer loans in certain zip codes, the AI will learn that pattern.
And optimize it.
Yes, optimize it and execute it with ruthless efficiency across your entire user base. It doesn't just deny one loan, it systemically redlines thousands of applications in a matter of seconds.
And by the time leadership even notices the anomaly in the quarterly data, the algorithm has already processed millions of data points based on that flawed, biased logic.
The damage is highly visible, and the algorithm itself is incredibly difficult to untangle.
I mean, think about your own trust as a consumer. We all interact with these systems daily.
Constantly.
If a human employee at your bank makes a clerical error, you might be annoyed, but you generally forgive the institution, right?
Sure, humans make mistakes.
But if you discover that the bank's algorithm has been quietly and systematically suppressing your credit limit for months based on some opaque demographic inferences, how hard is it for that institution to win your trust back?
It is nearly impossible. Parashar explicitly notes that trust, once lost due to algorithmic opacity, is exponentially more expensive to regain than traditional brand damage.
Because it feels intentional, even if it's just a machine.
And it tells the market a very specific, terrifying story. It says this company does not actually control its own technology. It is a systemic failure of governance.
But the external fallout, the angry customers, the viral social media threads exposing a rogue algorithm, the collapsing brand equity that is only the outward-facing symptom?
Exactly. That's just what the public sees.
Right. And the second half of Parashar's piece pivots to the internal bleeding happening inside these organizations.
He categorizes this internal damage into three specific areas: regulatory and legal exposure, internal resistance leading to low adoption, and the ultimate loss of strategic control.
Okay, starting with the legal side. I imagine governments aren't just sitting by watching this happen.
Definitely not.
If consumers are losing trust and systemic biases are being automated, regulators must be sharpening their knives. What does the legal exposure actually look like here?
It is shifting rapidly from theoretical fines to hard operational restrictions. Regulatory bodies globally are moving way past basic data privacy.
What are they demanding now?
They are demanding algorithmic explainability. If a regulatory body audits an organization, and that organization cannot explain the exact weighted variables their AI use to make a critical business decision.
Like why someone was denied a mortgage?
Yes. They aren't just facing bad PR. They face massive financial penalties and injunctions that can literally force them to turn their predictive models off completely.
So ethics is no longer a nice to have. It is a hard regulatory necessity for keeping the lights on.
Absolutely.
But, the internal cost that I found most compelling in Parashar's analysis wasn't the threat of government intervention.
Really? What stood out to you?
It was the threat from inside the building. The employees themselves.
Ah, yes, the adoption issue. It is a profound and, frankly, counterintuitive observation.
Right, because the standard executive assumption is, well, if you purchase a multi-million-dollar AI tool to automate workflows, employees will eagerly adopt it to save themselves time.
But Parashar points out the reality is the exact opposite. Employees are highly resistant to trusting systems that operate as a black box.
And this is such a crucial dynamic. Let's say you are a loan officer or a supply chain manager.
Okay.
Your personal reputation, your bonuses, your client relationships, they're all on the line.
Yes, your livelihood.
If management forces you to use an AI that spits out a decision that feels fundamentally unfair or totally illogical, and you cannot explain the reasoning to your angry client, you are going to find a way to work around that system.
Oh, absolutely. You will revert to your manual spreadsheets. Employees basically refuse to act as human shields for an opaque algorithm.
I wouldn't either.
Right. If the AI's logic challenges their own professional intuition or sense of fairness, they will simply abandon the tool.
This is exactly like management buying a $20 million piece of cutting-edge robotic assembly equipment for a factory.
Okay, I like this analogy.
But the workers on the floor refuse to turn it on because it occasionally shoots sparks in random directions, and literally no engineer in the building can explain the underlying mechanism causing it.
Yeah, no one is going near that machine.
Exactly. The workers aren't going to stand next to it, and they certainly aren't going to stamp their own names on the products it randomly spits out.
So the investment completely loses its value.
It just sits on the floor gathering dust while everyone quietly goes back to doing things by hand.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, your factory analogy beautifully illustrates Parashar's final, most critical internal cost,
Which is?
the loss of strategic control. When employees are actively working around the technology and systems are operating without clearly defined boundaries, leadership fundamentally loses visibility into the daily operations of their own company.
That creates a massive vacuum of accountability.
A huge word.
Because if an AI system makes a critical error in financial forecasting or resource allocation, who actually owns that mistake?
That is the million-dollar question. Is it the vendor who sold the base model?
Or is it the internal data scientist who tuned the parameters?
Right. Is it the middle manager who deployed it or the frontline employee who just blindly clicked approve?
Nobody knows.
Exactly. When decision accountability becomes a ghost, the C-suite is essentially flying blind. They're legally and financially responsible for an entity whose day-to-day behavior they do not fully understand and cannot accurately predict.
And that represents an existential strategic risk.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have painted a fairly terrifying landscape here.
We really have.
The rocket ship is in orbit with no navigation, the regulators are waiting to ground you, the passengers are panicking, and the crew is hiding in the back.
It's a mess.
The impending disaster of ignoring the mechanics of AI ethics is very clear. But Parashar is the founder of Rethink AI. He is in the business of building solutions, not just pointing out the fire.
Right.
So how are forward-thinking leaders actually getting out of this reactive, panic-driven trap? How do we move from reactive to proactive?
The solution requires a foundational shift in corporate strategy. Parashar details a paradigm shift that changes the fundamental question leadership asks about technology.
What's the old question?
Historically, the question has been entirely defensive, like, how do we comply with the bare minimum to avoid getting sued?
Right, check in the box.
But forward-thinking organizations are changing that to an offensive strategy. They are asking, how do we actively build trust, dynamically reduce risk, and scale this capability responsibly?
Which takes ethics out of the legal department and puts it into the core product strategy. It turns it into a competitive differentiator.
Exactly. It transforms AI ethics from a boring compliance hurdle into a robust, proactive risk management system. And to actually execute this shift, Parashar outlines a very practical 4-step playbook designed specifically for CXOs.
To help them regain the steering wheel.
Exactly.
Okay, walk us through the framework. Step 1.
Parashar starts the playbook at the very top of the organization. Step 1 is defining ethical boundaries at the leadership level.
So not the IT department.
No, he emphasizes that this cannot simply be delegated down to IT to figure out. Leadership has to draw the map before anyone starts driving.
What does that look like in practice?
This involves creating plain language mandates that dictate the absolute limits of algorithmic autonomy within the company. What are the acceptable use cases? But more importantly, what are the non-negotiable boundaries?
So drawing a hard line.
Right. An organization might dictate that AI can be used to synthesize data and suggest product recommendations, but it can never be used to automatically deny a customer a refund or, say, terminate an employee without a mandatory human review.
Establishing those firm guardrails is the prerequisite for everything else.
Exactly.
But once leadership draws that map, you hit the structural problem of actually building it. That brings us to step 2, which Parashar calls embedding ethics into system design.
Yes.
Now, Parashar says ethics must be designed, not added later. Saying you need to embed ethics sounds great in a high-level white paper. But practically speaking, how does an enterprise actually integrate that?
It's a huge operational challenge.
Right, because most companies aren't building foundational models from scratch. They are buying off-the-shelf tools or partnering with huge vendors.
Yeah.
How do you embed transparent logic into a black box model you just purchased?
That operational challenge is exactly what Parashar's firm, Rethink AI, specializes in solving through their consulting methodology.
Okay, how do they do it?
They don't just draft a code of conduct, they actually alter the technical architecture. They deploy what they call organizational AI readiness assessment.
Readiness assessments.
Right. So before a single piece of software is fully integrated, they pressure test the company's existing data pipelines to see if the organization even has the capability to track variables like bias.
Ah, so they're looking at the raw ingredients before they let the AI start cooking.
Exactly that. Embedding ethics mechanically means changing how data is handled. For instance, if an AI is being trained on historical hiring data,
Which might naturally contain biases against certain demographics based on past human decisions.
right, human bias baked into the data. Rethink AI might implement the use of synthetic data to balance the scales before the AI even trains on it.
That's smart.
They also focus on enterprise AI integration with risk controls. This means building hard-coded circuit breakers into the software.
Circuit breakers.
Yeah. If the AI's confidence score on a decision drops below 95%, or if its output suddenly skews heavily toward one demographic, the system automatically flags it and halts the process until a human reviews the logic.
But I mean, building circuit breakers is entirely useless if nobody's actually monitoring the switchboard, right?
That is the trap.
If a system shuts down because it drifted out of bounds, who gets the alert?
That vacuum of ownership we talked about earlier is what step 3 aims to fix,
Yes. Step 3 is establishing governance and accountability.
which means
A circuit breaker only works if there is a clear chain of command attached to it. Step 3 requires defining rigid, undeniable ownership of every single AI deployment.
so someone is on the hook. Exactly. Governance means establishing exact escalation mechanisms. When an anomaly is detected, the framework dictates precisely which team is responsible for auditing the model.
And what the timeline for resolution is.
Right. And who holds the ultimate sign-off before the system is allowed to go live again. Governance is the mechanism that ensures strategic control over the long term, preventing the AI from slowly drifting away from those boundaries set in step 1.
Which perfectly sets up the final piece of the puzzle, step 4. Aligning ethics with brand and strategy.
Yes, making it a core part of your identity.
Parashar argues that these governed, transparent AI systems should actively reinforce stakeholder trust. And there is a really fascinating detail hidden in the source material regarding this.
Oh, about their partnerships.
Yeah. Rethink AI actively partners with an agency called Vista Liberata, who serves as their official branding partner.
That specific partnership is incredibly telling about the future of corporate identity.
It really is.
Branding is no longer just about logos or, clever ad campaigns. It is fundamentally about trust. The partnership proves that AI maturity and ethical architecture are now inextricably tied to a company's core brand identity.
Because consumers care about what's under the hood now.
Exactly. In the very near future, your brand will be judged almost entirely by how intelligently, transparently, and ethically you deploy artificial intelligence. Strategy, risk management, and brand reputation have essentially merged into a single discipline.
So what does this all mean?
It's a big shift.
If we synthesize everything Parashar has laid out for us in this deep dive, the ultimate takeaway is incredibly stark.
It's not a drill.
Right. Treating the mechanics of AI transparency and governance as a theoretical academic discussion, or trying to use it as a superficial PR stunt to look good in a press release, that is a fast track to irrelevance.
Absolutely.
It is a hard, unavoidable business reality. The cost of ignoring the architecture of trust isn't just a regulatory slap on the wrist.
No, the costs are much deeper.
It is deeply financial. It actively breaks your operational capacity by alienating your own workforce. And it ultimately destroys your strategic control over your own organization.
You lose the wheel.
Exactly, as Parashar brilliantly frames it. The question facing leadership today is no longer whether you can afford the capital to invest in these ethical frameworks. The only question is whether you can afford the catastrophic cost of not doing it.
This raises an important question, and it's one I want to leave you, the listener, to really think about today on your own.
Let's hear it.
We have spent this time analyzing the responsibilities of massive corporations in the C-suite, but consider your own day-to-day professional life.
Our own habits.
Exactly. Think about the specific AI tools you are currently using to speed up your workflow, or the algorithms you rely on to manage your personal data. Do you actually know the underlying boundaries of their decision logic?
Most people definitely don't.
Right. Or are you implicitly trusting a system that, quite possibly, even its own creators have lost visibility into?
It is a genuinely unsettling thought to realize how much autonomy we hand over just to save a few minutes.
It is. So the next time you log in, the next time you use that platform to draft a critical communication, analyze a data set, or make a decision that affects your clients, take a step back and look at the interface.
And ask the big question.
Ask yourself, who is actually steering the ship?